What's up, collectors? Welcome back to Films by Color. I've got my good buddy John Malahy with me again, author of TCM's Summer Movies. And last time you were here, we counted down our favorite summer movies.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, we're going to keep the tradition going, except we're moving on to the next holiday. Today, we're going to be counting down our top 10 personal favorite fall movies. All right, let's jump right into it. I will just say for myself, I don't know about you, I'll ask you, I guess. I try to keep this to films that reminded me of the season of fall, specifically, not necessarily like October or Halloween, because that would open a whole nother box.
That's a different video.
That's a whole different category, a whole different list. So I try to keep this just seasonal, autumnal films that I would consider popping in around this time of year.
Yeah, and a lot of mine have just like fall leaf aesthetic.
That was a big thing. Just leaves apparently is all you need to make it feel like fall.
I mean, I tried to do them. Some of mine are sort of metaphorical fall.
Okay.
As opposed to literal, although that plays a part too.
And I will just say, don't pay too much attention to the ranking, because it was very hard to decide, like, do I just rank them by my favorites or do I rank them by the most fall? So this is just 10 movies that I think are really good watches in the month, or not in the month, in the season of fall. This is going to be a lot more mainstream than my last list. I couldn't really think of too many classic films when I was doing this, just based on what I've seen. And also, I will say this, it was really hard for me to put black and white films on this list. I couldn't think of it because it just doesn't give you the same feeling when you're just looking at, like, you need the colors for fall.
I feel like when they started making color films more regularly, that something about the beauty of fall, they started filming more and actually taking advantage of and highlighting.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of films that I looked through and watched and stuff, and they just didn't have the same vibe in black and white.
Exactly.
So I don't have any on my list, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So sorry if you only know my channel through like
no, I have one.
The classics and the criterion stuff that I do, because this is going to be a little bit of a different kind of video. But hopefully you enjoy these films. And let's go ahead and jump into your number 10. I'll let you go first.
Well, this isn't cheating. This is
already on the first one. The first one he's cheating. Also, we're sipping our fall coffees that he brought over. He's
pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah, look at that. We're really buying into the season.
We have the right colors on and stuff too. Warm earth tones.
My first pumpkin spice latte I've ever had, so thank you.
It's
very sweet.
It's something.
But number 10, what are we doing here? Where are we going? Where are you taking us?
I have all these on DVDs, basically, like old.
Because he's an old.
I am. I love Blu-rays.
Not that much older than me.
I'm not buying DVDs anymore, but I just have had these for so long. I think this one I've had for 20 years.
Oh, wow. So you have a relic.
I think a lot of people think of Autumn Sonata. You start your list, you're like, what are fall movies? And they're like, oh,
first you go to the ones with
autumn in the title.
With autumn in the name.
So I did that. And Autumn Sonata came up. Autumn Sonata is a great movie. I was going to cheat and tie, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll try not to cheat. I won't.
Well, you can bring up another one.
Have you seen Autumn Sonata?
I have not.
It's not on your list.
That is no, it's not on my list. But that's the Bergman film.
It is a Bergman film from the late 70s. It's Ingrid Bergman and Ingmar Bergman.
Oh yeah, if it wasn't confusing enough, they're both in the same. The same movie.
The 1-2 punch of the Bergmans.
Very depressing, I've heard.
It is a depressing movie because it's about a mother who's a very sort of uncaring character. But it's during autumn. I think one of the themes of autumn too is like, families coming together, and
a lot of family films. Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, and usually not in the best of circumstances, or they're looking back on things in their past that have been troublesome or bad family experience, the kind of thing, which is true about Autumn Sonata. But I actually am picking a different Bergman film because Cries and Whispers.
Oh,
have you seen this?
I have not. I've heard of it.
This was the first Bergman film I ever saw.
Oh, perfect.
So it actually means a little bit more to me personally. It does actually begin in the autumn. It's shot in color, so you get mostly on the inside of a mansion that's like blood red walls and carpets, and it's the color is very important to the film. Outdoors, there are, fall leaves, and, the external, like, beauty of fall thing. But it's also about not a mother so much, but 3 sisters. And one of them is dying. So the other 2 sisters are sort of there living in their own worlds, and they don't really have this close connection like you would hopefully have with your siblings. It's a very heavy movie.
Yeah. And it sounds like a very heavy double feature you've laid out for us.
It's structured very oddly. So it was not a great first film probably to watch. If you haven't seen any Bergman, I would not start with that. The movie means a lot to me because it was, like I have a history with it. I watched it the first time and it was kind of like this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And,
one of those ones that had to grow on you.
European art film in the truest sense, like So it grew on me, and I watched other Bergman, and I came back to it, and it's really affecting, and it's the heaviest one on my list. So we're just gonna get more fun.
All right. Well, speaking of European,
so we got that out of the way.
Speaking of European art films, we're gonna go to a very predictable place for me as my number 10. Had to get this one on here. It's an autumn tale, or tale of autumn, however you translate it. But yeah, this is obviously Eric Rohmer. Like you said, I actually have a personal history with most of these films, but this is the only one I don't, because I just watched this for the first time, and it's delightful. It's nice. Have you seen this one?
A few days ago.
You did?
That. Yeah, because it's on Criterion right now.
Interesting. Not my favorite of the 4 seasons, but this is the one that goes into. It's kind of in like rom-com territory. It is about an aging woman in her 40s, and her kids have moved out.
It's like she's my age.
Well, that's the point of the movie. I'm not judging.
Bye, guys. Bye.
So her kids have moved out. She's lonely. Her friends are trying to push her to get in a relationship. And actually, what's her name? Marie Riviere?
From the Green Ray.
From the Green Ray is in this as her best friend. She tries to get her to put an ad in the newspaper back before Tinder, when you had to put ads in the newspaper. And she doesn't want to do it, so she actually puts one in for her friend and finds her a man and goes on the date with him first to make sure he's not a creep.
I was actually unsure what was happening when she did that.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I had missed a scene and she was doing it for herself, but she was actually, she was like testing him out, basically.
Yeah. So she's a good friend, and besides the lying and deceit.
Besides all the deception.
Yeah. But then she also has another friend who's also trying to fix her up with another man. And then in true rom-com fashion, it ends in a wedding where they both introduce both men to her and all the dominoes fall. That was
a good scene.
Yeah. And it ends with an upbeat wedding song that the wedding band is singing. Very different. If you don't, I would say give this one a try if you're not the biggest Rohmer fan. Like, because my wife did not like Tale of Summer, but I think she would be on board with this one a little bit more.
This might be a little easier to
good introduction.
What's the word? Accessible. That's the word.
Oh, yes. This is probably an accessible one.
I think so.
Especially if you like female-led films that are kind of rom-com-y.
So another autumn theme is like the harvest too, and this is in wine country.
Yes, well, the main character
in France,
owns a vineyard, and she's always, it's like harvesting season, so it's perfect. This is a great cover, and the film has got lots of great, beautiful outdoor scenery like he always does. So yeah, that's my number 10, Tale of Autumn by Eric Rohmer.
This one I think takes place in autumn.
Okay. Have you watched it recently?
Yes.
Okay.
I couldn't really tell. I heard one source describe it as
completely indoor movie.
No, it's not. But I heard one source describe it as winter or as summer. I don't think that's true.
Oh.
I'm disputing. I don't remember which this. So there's a lot of movies on my long list. I had like 150.
Oh gosh, yeah, he sent me his list. There was like hundreds of movies on
and I think most of the ones that are actually on this were not on that list I sent you.
Oh,
so
it was a decoy list. Well, a lot of those ones you put on there were not.
It wasn't a decoy list. I just
were not fall.
More came to me.
I had a bone to pick with you because we watched a couple of them, and then we were like, me and Grace were like, this is not fall, John. We watched Swingers. Not anything to do with fall.
Oh, I don't know who mentioned that to me. People gave me suggestions and I wrote them down. So.
That's true. You are gullible.
So a lot of these films I feel like take place in the fall with kids, and it's like kids scary story stuff. One in particular was Something Wicked This Way Comes.
I have not seen
which you definitely need to see.
I know.
Carnival. It's very fall. So I almost picked that, except there was one movie that was kind of in the same genre that I have more of a past with, and I grew up with, and I love it, and so I picked it. It is The Witches. Nicholas Roeg directed this.
I have not seen that.
Very creepy movie. This one gave me nightmares when I was little. So it's based on the Roald Dahl book. It's about a young kid who is, I believe he has an American accent in the movie, so I don't know. He's staying with his grandmother in Norway. It starts out with her telling him stories of witches and how regular women walking down the street are actually witches. And
like the Norwegian version of fairy tale witches.
Maybe
not
so.
Because I did see that part, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
They like eat children, and it was very different.
Yeah, and they have like really sensitive senses of smell and that kind of stuff. So you haven't seen any of the versions, or do you know the story?
No, I have not seen.
Well, essentially, they wind up at this hotel by the seaside, and there's a convention going on at the same time, which is like the Prevention of Cruelty to Children is the name of it. But it's actually just a convention of witches getting together.
Oh, that's what I thought you were going with.
Which is, of course, it just happens to be the same place. But I've never actually read the book. I would love to see if there's more to. I won't tell any more of the story. It's not really that complicated.
Yeah, maybe I'll check it out this year. Where are we going next? Number 9. I'm going to go to a family film category. I try to get different categories on this list. So we had a film that no child would be interested in on my number 10, and now for number 9, I think this is also older children, maybe, because it's kind of depressing. But it's Christopher Robin. Have you seen this?
Yes.
Christopher Robin was a delight when it came. This is 2018. Really surprised me. I am a huge fan of, obviously, the original, or not original, but the Disney animated shorts from the 60s, which were based on the Milne stories, which I'm also a big fan of. And so I was excited about this, but I didn't think it would. I don't know. I was surprised. It was very respectful and reverent of the both source materials, and I feel like if Disney made this now, it would not be nearly as good. I feel like they would be just kind of shoving in their own references. Like all they do now is just reference their old stuff and rehash everything. This was actually really interesting, and it was also true to the book characters as well, and had lots of references to that, not just the animated Disney stuff.
It's really nice in a kind of like a Paddington way.
Exactly, very Paddington.
It kind of has that same vibe to it.
Very, very much so, and it, just like those films, it's shot beautifully.
Oh yeah.
I'm not familiar with the director, but who is that?
Very Fall.
Very Fall. Yes. That's why I just rewatched this with the kids this week, because I wanted to make sure that it was fall. I wasn't sure. The poster there, you can see, is very fall.
I think Disney live action has the best special effects. Like, it looks great.
Oh, they look incredible. Yeah. And the voice actors are amazing.
I mean, the voices are a little different. Pooh sounds the same.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're familiar with the animation, the animated versions, like Rabbit and Eeyore and some of those are a little different, but it's okay because they look different, and
But I think they nail the personalities of them. Like Eeyore's still spot on. And it's just a great story about, and that could have been everything. It could have just been that, but it's actually a good story too about the importance of nostalgia and, remembering what it's like to be a kid, and finding that balance of not just giving your kid clothes and food and material stuff, but like giving them time and actually like giving them a life. Maybe the third act makes it a little bit more generic. It kind of turns into more generic kids movie with that. I think it was a little bit stronger in the beginning.
I don't remember the ending. It's been a while.
It kind of wraps everything up with a nice little bow that makes it feel a little bit more like a kids movie.
Yeah.
But the first two acts are, I think, incredible. All of the stuff in, like you mentioned, when we go to the 100-acre wood, it's just beautiful scenery, oranges and yellows and just leaves all over the place. And then when we go back to his childhood home, it's very fall there too.
But this is one of those, I had a bunch on my list that were like, England is dreary.
Yeah, their fall is not as pretty.
Is it fall? I mean, that is, I think.
Yeah, I think this one is, but there was some where I was like, is this fall or is it
like the witches? I wasn't quite sure, but it seemed like the weather was correct. Like it had that vibe. So.
Yeah, people are wearing like sweaters and scarves and stuff. It's kind of hard also because this is a time where everyone's wearing full suits, so they're also just warm because they don't need jackets.
They wear every day.
And they're wearing pea coats and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Christopher Robin, if you missed it, I recommend checking that one out. It was a surprise. I remember 2018 was the Movie Pass year, and I saw so many movies, and I wish that it didn't crash and burn because I was one of the ones that was really benefiting from that service. But I remember I saw this with my Movie Pass, and then I went back again and bought a ticket with my Movie Pass to see The Meg. And then I went in the theater and watched this again because I don't know. I really love this one. And
that was a good choice.
It was really fun. So I recommend that one.
So does that mean that the other Winnie the Pooh films are not on your list?
I left because we combined all the Winnie the Pooh shorts into that one film in 77, and only one of them is really fall. It's the middle one, The Blustery Day. So I do recommend checking out that too, but I didn't want to give a whole spot to it.
I like all the Winnie the Pooh stuff. I think even the 2012 film, 2010, 2011, something like that. It was pretty good. I mean,
it was really good too. My biggest thing was it was just too short. It was like 70 something minutes.
A little forgettable.
Yeah,
but I felt true to the style of the originals, and that's probably my favorite like Disney property. I think, just because it's something I grew up with, and it's just a sweet thing as opposed to
I've talked about it before. Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is like my favorite Disney animated film, so I highly recommend that. But I just didn't put it on the list because it wasn't like a full movie. It was just that one short.
Yeah. So this is my number 8 is another Criterion film, but it's not on Blu-ray yet. I'm cheating here a little too. Not cheating. It's just I'm not sure if it's fall. It's a metaphorical fall. So I'll just say what it is. It's The Unbearable Lightness of Being.
I've heard of
Lena Olin on the cover there. Daniel Day-Lewis, Juliette Binoche.
Juliette Binoche is in this.
Yeah, very young Juliette Binoche.
Oh, now I'm really intrigued.
So it's based on a book. It's pretty close to the book, although I think the author of the book has sort of, well, he just passed away like last year. But yeah, he wasn't a huge fan. And I think he didn't let anybody, I think he said after this movie came out that he wasn't going to let anybody else make one of his books into a movie again.
Oh, man.
But it's still a great movie, so you should see it.
Don't
it's
listen
also
to the author. Listen to John. He's also an author.
It's a different thing. Books and movies are different things.
I mean, The Shining is a different thing.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Okay, Unbearable Lightness of Being. So this is set in Czechoslovakia in the 60s. So I don't know how up to speed you are in your Eastern European 20th century history.
I like Czech films from the 60s, but I don't know anything about the history.
Well, okay, same time period. So there was a period in like 1968 where they had some reforms, some like liberalization of freedom of the press and freedom of speech and, that kind of stuff. It was known as the Prague Spring. The beginning of the movie takes place there, where the main character is a physician, but he has also, like, at some point he actually writes an article that criticizes the leadership, and it gets published because they can publish it now. And he is kind of a womanizer, and so he's like, Lena Olin plays his main sort of mistress. And they're both like sort of free-spirited, there's this sense of freedom about it. And then in August of 68, the Soviets have had enough, and they roll into town and crack down, and sort of, the Prague Spring is over. So what you have essentially is an autumn at that point. So it's like, and I think part of autumn is like looking back on, it's after like the warm months and the fun months, and you're kind of heading into winter and cold and, whatever. So I think metaphorically it works. It's also, I guess, technically in fall, because August, September, October, This is my most out there pick in terms of like how this actually relates to the autumn, because I feel like it's
an asterisk. But I will say it's also just a really absorbing film. I made it sound heavy, but it's very kind of it moves along at a brisk pace, and it's really entertaining. It's like 3 hours long too. So wow.
A
brisk pace, a brisk 3 hours.
It just moves along. It's great. And they're all, Daniel Day-Lewis, Juliette Binoche, Lena Olin, that's great.
Yeah, that's a crazy cast.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Oh, and I should say, part of the reason I picked that is because I did like a semester in Prague back in college, and that's where I kind of learned about. I had the book, and I saw the movie for the first time, and so I kind of connect with that because it was
another personal one for you.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sweet.
Oh, it's also shot by Sven Nykvist, who was the cinematographer on Cries and Whispers, which is cool.
So it has kind of Sven.
I have some connections here. Yeah, a little Sven happening. Little Sven action.
I'm also going to go to the Criterion Collection for my next one here. We're going to go into an animated feature. This is stop motion animation. There's quite a few of those to pick from in this season.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with the most fall of them all. Fantastic Mr. Fox.
So fall.
This is one that actually didn't click with me the first couple times I watched it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. But a lot of people say this is like their favorite Wes Anderson movie, which I didn't understand the first couple times. And then just this last week, I've been putting Grace through like a crash course of fall movies this week, preparing for this. So we popped it in one more time, and we had a blast. I don't know, everything fell into place finally.
So it may not have made the list.
It wasn't on the list. Connor was mad at me. Connor was like, Fantastic Mr. Fox better be on that list. And I was like, it's like number 11 and 12, man. I don't think it's going to make it. We rewatched it, and I bumped it up to all the way up to 8. We had a great time with this. Super charming, super whimsical, and the humor really worked for me this time. I think this one has even different sense of humor than his other films. It's very Wes Anderson still, but I think there's something slightly different about this. Maybe that's why it resonates with people that aren't super big Wes Anderson fans. I think one of the main reasons is George Clooney. It's so weird that George Clooney never came back because he always reuses his cast.
And Meryl Streep plays a main part.
Yeah, very different cast on this one. Of course, you've got Jason Schwartzman playing the son, who's in every single one since Rushmore. So it still feels like a Wes Anderson cast. You got Bill Murray as the Badger, but those two leads played by different actresses really like switches things up. George Clooney's fantastic in this. I think his dry wit and his humor works really well. And not only is it just a gorgeous, beautifully filmed movie, but and it's not just the craft though. I think the story's pretty good too. It's about a father who is trying to find that balance between being a father and a husband, and also trying to balance his own hobbies and interests, and finding that balance. In this case, happened to be a very dangerous hobby, which is thievery, and putting his family in danger. But I think it's just an extreme version of that story that we've seen a lot. And it's another father-son movie, which always works with me. Another Roald Dahl adaptation.
Yeah, it didn't have to be fall, right? Like I don't think it's in fall. It just looks, everything is orange.
Everything is orange. Everything's brown. Something fell. Yeah, I haven't read the book, so maybe.
No, I looked at it, and I don't think it's
not fall at all.
I don't think so.
Maybe he just took that because they're stealing cider, and
yeah.
So there's a little bit there, but yeah, he just for some reason decided to make it the most fall-looking movie ever.
It looks amazing. So
yeah, it looks really good.
So yeah,
like look, you got a little bit of this.
I watched it again this week. It did not make my list. Because again, I had the same reaction you did of like, or originally, of I just found it a little
sterile, off-putting.
I just didn't connect with the characters or something.
Something about this last time, I really liked his son, and I felt so bad for his son because well, I get what you're saying though, because he is kind of a really bad dad. Like all the stuff with Christopherson.
Yeah,
he's just like in love with it. There's another part of it I didn't even mention, but it's about like,
which I think is not in the book.
I'm sure none of this is in the book. I'm sure the book is very basic. It seems like he put a lot into this, but it's about loving your son for who they are and not trying to put your own expectations and your interests and stuff on them. So I don't know. I felt that I found that very touching at the end when he finally.
So you found a way in.
Yeah, I did.
I haven't found a way in yet.
You're still too impenetrable for John here.
I actually love Isle of Dogs for some reason. Like that one, the first time I watched that, I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is pretty lightweight. And then I watched it again. I loved it, but I loved the humor. I loved like Bryan Cranston's character.
Another new, maybe so.
So maybe if I give this one a third or fourth shot.
Well, you might be too far gone. That's fine. You don't have to like all of his films. I say give it another try if you haven't, unless you're John. If you didn't like it the first time, because I think it takes a couple times, but his movies oftentimes take a couple times for me to get it.
Maybe it's just the mood you're in too when you watch it.
Well, and if it's fall, definitely watch this one in the fall. I couldn't imagine watching this like.
Maybe if I had my pumpkin spice latte,
that might have helped.
Continuing in my theme of heavy dramas.
Yeah, I'm glad I got some more mainstream stuff because you're bringing us down.
This one has Nazis in it, so
always great for a good seasonal watch.
Soviets, Nazis, terrible Swedish parents. Witches
that eat children.
It's that time of year, guys. I have picked another film that uses autumn as a metaphor, but it's also, I think, also set in autumn. Part of it, anyway. I'm the worst person at this list, but this one also means a lot to me because
This is why TCM didn't ask you to write a book about autumn.
This is why we're not doing a book. This is just a mess. Okay, so I'll just say this is the Remains of the Day. There is a Blu-ray of this though that I think looks lovely. But
what is this about? Oh, I see some fall foliage in the back there.
There's some trees with some red leaves on. It's a great book too. It's one actually beautiful. It's like a Booker Prize winning book. Kazuo Ishiguro was the.
Keeps bringing up books on this channel. Sorry guys, this is a movie channel. I don't know why you keep bringing up
books. Are great. You should read books. So it's about a butler
who buttles.
One who buttles. Anthony Hopkins in England for this, country manor. And then actually Christopher Reeve is the American who comes in after the war and takes the house over. So this is not setting up the movie very well, but basically Anthony Hopkins has been the butler for this house for so long, and he's finally given, Christopher Reeve comes in and he's like, take a vacation. So he does. And it's set in the fall and everything. The flashback is, Anthony Hopkins being the perfect butler, and he has such respect for Lord Darlington and his...
Is there a butler convention in town?
There's not a butler convention.
Oh, thought that was one of the connecting pieces.
He brings in Emma Thompson as like the head maid or whatever. There's some term for that I'm
love good Emma Thompson performance.
So they have, and she's more like down to earth, I guess, more of a human being, and he's more stern and proper and believes in a certain way of doing things and having honor as your butler and serving like the idea of like serving great men.
The butler honor code.
And he has such a high esteem for the man he works for that it never actually enters into his mind that he could be a terrible person, and in fact you learn that he was.
That's interesting,
because he's sort of like befriending Germans in the 30s, and they have sort of late night
meetings
in his
house.
There's the Nazis.
There's the Nazis.
But Anthony Hopkins is just blinded by its sense of duty and everything. So anyway, so the idea is that he is looking back on his life. He hasn't really done a whole lot with himself because he's been devoted to this other person for so long. Not with remorse or anything, but he's kind of at the end of his days. He's in the autumn of his life. It's set in the autumn, and it's also like metaphorically.
So an old man at the end of his days grieving his wasted life.
Good.
Another bummer of a film.
And it's like the first time I watched it, I was kind of bored, but I was also a teenager, so maybe I have no life experience.
It was also the 50s when you were a teenager. So sorry, I think the coffee's kicking in, and I'm being way more interruptive.
It's really snappy now.
I don't know what you've done with me with this coffee.
There's 7 shots in here, so no.
Good lord. I'm not gonna make it through this video.
It's the sugar too, I think.
Yeah, it's all getting to me. I'm interrupting you a lot. I apologize. I blame you.
Whatever, it's your video. I'll just say it's Merchant Ivory. So they did Howard's End. They did.
I was gonna say this sounds like a room with a view.
Yeah.
This is your room with a view on this list. Did you have it on your list?
I don't know. I think so.
Go watch the video. Link in the description.
The past is past.
Yeah, that's why we do this, because then we can just forget everything once we dump it on. Dump it on a video.
It'll be online forever.
Get on it, Criterion.
And no one ever talks about it, so I feel like here I just talked about it. I did my part.
That's what we do. What we do here. Talk about things no one cares about. This one though is a very popular film. My next one, of course, because I'm just the popular guy this time around. But this is another animated film, not stop motion. We're going to go into 3D animation this time. This is a Pixar film. Speaking of films that'll make you cry, this is a top 5 Pixar film for me. I don't know about you, but this is a more recent one that I really like. This is Coco.
Yeah, this is great.
Coco is so good.
So good.
Every time this is one where I never think to go back to it. And then I go back to it and I'm like, why don't I go back to this? This is so good.
And it's got music. And
it's got music. That
really
makes everything
interesting
better.
Culture and
Learned so much. And I'm also like.
That's a huge Blu-ray.
It's very thick.
Like digipack thing.
Yeah, it's when Target was doing these cool. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
Very fall. Obviously it has a lot to do with fall because it is Dia de los Muertos, which is Day of the Dead. Which is, I think, November 1st and 2nd, right after our Halloween. So very seasonal, very fall.
All Saints Day.
Lots of bright, vibrant, especially with this animation looks gorgeous. Lots of oranges. These actually aren't leaves like I thought. They're actually petals, but I think it still passes the fall test.
It's orange, so.
Loved learning about all of the Mexican culture and all of the religious stuff that obviously I didn't grow up with, like fascinating stuff.
I think if this is true, I think it's cool that the idea that if someone has died, they're not really gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, after
it's such I think it's a good thing for kids. I think, in a way to kind of teach them about death and how that works. And
I did watch this with my kids, but I was like, should we show them this? Oh, it's a little early. They're a little young to be talking about death. So I think definitely have that conversation with your significant other and decide when you want to show this to your kids, because it is kind of heavy stuff. Especially when was that scene where his friend gets forgotten for good, and I was like, we'll have a conversation about this after this, kids. But several scenes. Obviously the ending, Remember Me, makes you cry every single time. Yeah, everyone's
really
crying.
Sweet. It's a good movie.
But it's a great movie. It's, like I said, visually just stunning, wonderful to look at. I think I should start watching this around the fall season. Maybe it's October, November every year, because like I said, I never remember to go back to it, but every time I do, I love it.
Day of the Dead, do that. It's good.
Some other stop motion films I'll throw out real quick that are also perfectly great to watch in the fall.
I'm glad you're mentioning
is Coraline and Paranorman. Both of those getting a little bit more into the spooky season. But so that's why I went with Coco over those. But
Coraline got
really
a lot of publicity when it came out. I feel like Paranorman wasn't as big, but it's so good. I actually almost put that on my list.
Okay.
But I hadn't seen it in a long time. I needed to rewatch it.
I do need to rewatch that. I think I've only seen it once.
It goes in that spooky kids, like Something Wicked This Way Comes, witches category, I think, where it's like, paranormal stuff happening in his own neighborhood.
Yeah.
And just really great characters and really good animation.
And very fall.
Very fall.
And then one more, actually another Pixar film I'll mention, I'll throw it out, is A Bug's Life, which is one of my favorite Pixar films. It's the one I grew up with. And it is very fall. Like, the whole plot revolves around it being fall.
I don't remember that.
Like, I saw it once. The grasshoppers are like, well, it's Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
Or Magnificent Seven, or Galaxy Quest, or whatever you want it to be. It's that same story with
Galaxy
bugs.
Quest?
Yeah. It's actually closer to Galaxy Quest or Three Amigos, because those are the comedic versions where they're not actually warriors for all three of those. We made a bunch of these in the 90s. It's also the Aesop's Fable, The Grasshopper and the Ants, which I love. But yeah, the grasshoppers say they're going to come back when the last leaf falls.
Oh.
So it's a harvest movie. It's another harvest film.
Very nice.
Harvesting grain the whole time.
I actually started watching that recently, and it's I think it's a little hard to watch because it's primitive
animation.
Yeah, computer animation. I mean, it's a grid movie.
It doesn't bother me because I grew up with it, but I could see that if you haven't seen it.
Not hard to watch. It's just like, whoa, that's what it looked like then. Like, it looked great at the time.
Yeah, and it is a little bit more early Pixar snarky. Like, if you look at this in Toy Story, they're like, they're being super sarcastic all the time, being like meaner to each other, using words that they don't use later on, like a lot of idiots and shut ups thrown around.
That was their second movie, right? That was right after Toy Story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
or a couple years
very early. You still got Randy Newman doing all the soundtracks for the Pixar films at that point, so that's always great. But yeah, 2 Pixar films that are both very fall, and I recommend checking them both out.
I have a Wes Anderson film on my list. It is not Fantastic Mr. Fox.
I'm glad you got it.
As we know, and I'm surprised. I had to grab this from his shelf. And it wasn't taken down, so I know this is not on your list.
It's not on my list.
Unless you have 2 of them. Rushmore.
Could happen. Rushmore, I've only seen it once, so I couldn't really remember.
This is a brilliant movie, and it's simple. It's just like, weirdo kid. And
we had to have high school film.
Private school.
Lots of high school films. Any high school film could be on here, really, because especially if they're back to school films.
I had so many like fall school movies. I had Dead Poet Society, School Ties, Good Will Hunting,
Election, another high school one.
Election, Harry Potter and Prisoner of Azkaban. I think is extremely fall.
That's true.
Has pumpkins and stuff.
Also has Christmas.
Scent of a Woman. I think that's high school or like boarding school or something. Have you ever seen that? That's Chris O'Donnell and Al Pacino.
Oh,
hoo-ah! Like
which one of them is the woman?
What? No,
they're smelling a different woman.
It's actually based on like an Italian film, which was called Son of a Woman. I don't know. And there's some thing in there where it's basically like Al Pacino he's blind. So he hires, or his daughter or somebody hires someone to kind of accompany him around for the weekend for some reason, because I guess the family's going away for Thanksgiving. It's around Thanksgiving weekend.
But anyway, Rushmore.
Well, it's fun. Anyway, Rushmore. So this is Wes Anderson's second movie, I guess. It's shot at the school that I believe he actually went there.
This is Houston. Like where he cements his style, right? Or not cements, but introduces his style, because his first film is very normal. Bottle Rocket is just kind of like a good drama.
This is on the road to Wes Anderson style.
Start introducing some Andersonisms in this one.
Yeah, and like the soundtrack.
The slow-mo while the soundtrack's playing.
Right. Some of the sort of
symmetry and...
Yeah, exactly. Some of the diorama type compositions and stuff that he does, and the characters, but it also has a sweetness to it. I think Bill Murray plays a big part here, and such a great character. And Jason Schwartzman's like a terrible student, but he's also like kind of like a
this is where Jason Schwartzman begins.
He has so much self-confidence, and he's kind of like
so charming.
He's like a Renaissance man in a way.
Yeah, he's a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes,
he might not even be a jack. He might be like an 8.
I really love this, and it looks like fall. I mean, it's in Houston, so I don't know. I have family there. I've been there during the fall, and it's just like, it's a little cooler, which is nice because it's really hot down there. But it's not like New England or something, but it's still, I think it works.
Yeah, it is a good movie, and I do need to rewatch that one. Maybe I will rewatch it this fall season, thanks to you and your recommendation.
You definitely should.
Definitely should.
Any time of the year, really.
All right, next. going into a whole new category. As I was doing research for this and rewatching things, I noticed there's this specific category of fall films that are children, specifically children, dealing with loss and grief and channeling it through their imagination of like fantasy worlds. And I didn't want to have too many on here, so I just went with one, and I went with Monster Calls.
Okay, I haven't seen this.
Oh, you haven't seen Monster Calls?
No, and I'm glad. There's one I haven't seen.
Yeah, Monster Calls.
That sounds terrible. Take that out.
Well, let's see. So Monster Calls is, I actually don't know the kid, but it's Felicity Jones, Sigourney Weaver, and Liam Neeson plays the monster. He's just like a voice, and he does like the stop motion. Very fall. The monster is just like a giant tree. All the nightmare scenes with him have got like gusts of wind and leaves blowing everywhere. It's very fall. It is, I think, England. So, like you said, it's got kind of that rainy, just some leaves on the side of the road.
It's always fall there.
But he does go off to like this, like kind of like this desktop background right here, where it's just like fields and mountains and like there's a big church. So you got a lot of fall foliage and scenery in those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about a boy, middle school age. His mother has a severe case of cancer and is dying, and he's going through the grieving process. Got a lot of pent up rage and anger. He's getting bullied at school on top of it because he's weird, kind of mopey kid. Very, very hard to watch. This is why all of the films in this category.
It sounds like Pan's Labyrinth to me or something.
A little bit. He is kind of escaping in, but it's not so much him escaping into the fantasy world as he's kind of learning about himself through it. It's how he expresses, and he's understanding his own feelings and his anxiety and his mostly anger. But there's this really cool like story device where it's kind of like a Christmas Carol, where this guy, the monster, comes to him in his dreams, and he says, I'm going to tell you these 3 stories, and like over 3 nights he comes back and tells him a story, and he'll give him a story that is morally ambiguous and kind of breaks his understanding of what storytelling should be like. And you find out that they're the bad guys, so he's trying to like, he's learning about how it doesn't always work out. And
right.
He's kind of breaking out of his...
in like gray areas and stuff. Okay.
Nice. Very hard to watch. Very sad, but I think it's a very rewarding film. I know you don't have a problem with sad films, clearly. But yeah, I just really connected with this one. This was 2016. This was one of my favorite films from that year. This is how much I like this movie. I actually have the art book for this movie, which you can see very fall looking. All of the dream story sequences were done by this art studio with like this really cool, like kind of stop motion art looking.
Yeah.
And they're lots of oranges.
I didn't know you could bring visual aids to this thing.
There's like a lot of orange scenes. A lot of the fairy tales that he tells him are about. We've got some trees that you can see kind of the background there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think it definitely fits into the category. There's the monster right there, Liam Neeson. We've got a lot of orange. I think there's a lot of care put into this movie. I'm not familiar with the director. Interesting, I think the director speaks Spanish because his commentary on the disc is fully in Spanish.
J.A. Bayona.
Yeah. Are you familiar?
The name, it sounds familiar.
The name sounds familiar. So yeah, and this is another one that you'll love because it's based on a book. That's a very popular, beloved book. Okay. I have not read the book, but the movie really worked for me, and I highly recommend checking out Monster Calls if you're into that kind of thing. A couple other films in this same category that I thought about putting on the list, but I went with Monster Calls. Didn't want to have too many of the same ones. Bridge to Terabithia, very similar. Mm-hmm. Children dealing with loss and getting over grief and having this kind of fantasy world with mythical creatures. Another one you don't want to watch every year because it is brutal. Yeah. That's one that you go back to and you're like, it can't be as bad as I remember when I was a kid. Nope, it is. And it's still heartbreaking and you still cry your face off.
Rough, yeah.
And then another one, more recent one that is another very similar on the same lines of getting over a lost parent. I have. I watched it this week. Did not make my list, but Petite Maman is kind of the similar vibe. Doesn't go as far with the visual effects and that kind of stuff.
I don't think it's as sad either necessarily. Yeah. Like it's not a
this is definitely like a more baseline.
It's almost more slice of life or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bittersweet, but
so yeah, that's definitely a category of fall films that I noticed.
Moving on, this is another drama based on a book.
Wow, so we've synced up on this one.
Another heavy one. I think this may be the last. Oh no, it's not. It's a heavy season, guys. This is what you get.
I'm glad I put Christopher Robin on the list.
This one is one I thought of immediately when we're talking about doing a list of movies, because it's
because you had a hard time with this list.
Yeah,
it was like down to the wire. Yesterday, it was like I still don't have my list.
It was kind of this morning, actually.
Well, I'm glad this one jumped right out you.
Not a lot of people talk about this one, except I used to hear it more in a derogatory way because it won an Oscar over like Raging Bull.
Oh,
but it's Ordinary People.
Ooh,
this is it's Robert Redford directed this.
Oh,
and beat Martin Scorsese for Raging Bull for the Oscar. So I'll let you guys debate that. That's a different video. But I don't think we should hold that against this movie because this is fantastic. Actually, it's a good, sad family movie based on a book that was actually really popular. It's basically Mary Tyler Moore playing against type as this very cold mother figure, and Donald Sutherland as the father.
You have a lot of cold mothers on your list.
Yes, there's a motif happening. Their son, who's in high school, Timothy Hutton, he's kind of the main character. You're kind of following him the whole time. It's from his perspective because he's dealing with the death of his older brother who died in an accident, and so the family is kind of feel like the family is sort of tearing at the seams a bit, and he's bearing a lot of this on himself. And he goes to a therapist. Judd Hirsch plays his therapist, sort of dealing with the fallout of this accident that happened.
Wow.
And it takes place in the fall, and it's very autumnal, and he goes to school, and then at the end, it's like the winter essentially is kicked in. And I won't say what happens.
It goes through the whole season. Yeah, that fits perfectly with Monster Calls.
Yeah.
They line up pretty well.
Okay. It's a really smartly written, affecting movie. It's small scale,
Simple
it's just
plot,
one family.
but
very
executed perfectly.
It is.
Sweet.
Recommend it.
Awesome.
Even if it did beat Raging Bull.
All right, my next one is a short. I got a short on this list, but it is one of my favorites, and any excuse to bring this up, I will bring it up. And we are getting a Blu-ray this December.
Yes, we are.
It's the Red Balloon. The Red Balloon takes place in fall. It all takes place on the streets of France. So you're not seeing a lot of trees, but there is a couple scenes where there's literally, and I don't know how they did it. Like nowadays we would just do like digital leaves falling, but during the entire scene there's just leaves falling. I'm assuming there's a guy just like shaking the tree to make all the leaves
big
fall.
Bag of leaves. Just...
Yeah, so the scene where he goes to school and he like leaves the balloon with the outside and it gets back to him.
Yeah,
there's just leaves falling the whole time. It's such a beautiful film. On top of a few scenes with leaves, it's just like he's got this nice little cute gray sweater. He's running around the streets. I don't know. There's a I haven't mentioned this the whole time, but there's a feeling that I like in fall movies. I want them to make me want to go outside and like hike and like go on adventures and stuff. Like that's what I do in fall because we're in Georgia. 100 degrees all summer, and then finally we get the fall weather and like going outside.
Yeah, I'm only wearing a sweater today as a prop. It's actually like 85 degrees. But...
Yeah. I got sunburned yesterday because it's still super hot outside, but it is getting more.
Our pool is still open in my condo.
It is getting cooler now. My family and I have started going out and doing some hiking. It's great. The leaves are starting to turn. It's beautiful. So this captures that sense of adventure perfectly. It's just a kid running around, having adventures, using his imagination. In the middle of fall.
Do you see his parents in there at all? I think it's just him and the balloon.
His parents never show up. I think his mom is in the house one time and tells him to throw the balloon outside.
Okay.
But that's the only time he goes home. He just shows him running around the streets.
It seems like this movie was... I remember when it came out on DVD and I was talking to somebody about it and they're like, oh yeah, we watched that in school. I guess it was like in the...
Yeah, I'm jealous.
70s,
we didn't watch
80s,
this
whatever.
kind of good stuff when I was in school.
Because it's a good kids movie. There's no dialogue basically. So
barely any.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
It would be subtitled in French, but actually it won an Oscar for its screenplay, which is fascinating.
As a short, I know, right?
And there's no dialogue, and it's really short.
But it's so good. That's how good it is. It doesn't even need dialogue. So it is I've said this before. I've said my piece on this film. I was raving about it in the last video because they just announced the Blu-ray is coming out this year, so everybody go buy that. Because Albert Lamouris is a great film director, and he does a lot of films for children and about children. And I'm excited to check out his other ones. But yeah. Definitely show this one to your kids.
You've seen White Mane, I guess?
Have seen White Mane. I have not seen the other three.
Yeah, I don't think they've been available.
They're not really available. But this is a perfect film to show your kids. I recently just watched it 2 weeks ago. Showed it to my daughter for the first time because it's one of my son's favorites. She's 3 and he's 5. And when it ended, beautiful ending. I don't want to give it away, but amazing ending. Magical ending. My kids were just like giggling and giggling through the whole ending, and as soon as it ended, they wanted to immediately watch it again because it was short. Like, oh, let's just watch it again. I'm like, we gotta go to bed. But,
good kids.
But yeah, they love it, and I think every kid should grow up with this. I think it's great, and I think it's a perfect thing to pop in every fall since it's only 34 minutes. I mean, get the season off right.
Might go watch it tonight.
Do it.
It is a sweet movie.
It's great. It's lovely.
That's a good pick.
And that's the second
red balloon
movie I have on the list.
We usually have a little motif going on too.
Yeah, there you go. Don't know why the balloon is red in this because it was always blue in the original and in the book. So I don't know why they changed it to red. Maybe it was a reference to the red balloon. Who knows?
I have this is not a tie, but it's important to mention both films here, I think.
Yeah, I've been throwing out some extras, so go ahead.
And I have them both. And I borrowed this from somebody. Have you seen this?
No, I might have to borrow it from you because I wanted to watch that for this, but I didn't have a way to get it. It's not streaming anywhere.
So Sharon, let me know if it's okay for him to borrow it. Oh. At this point, it'll be too late. And whatever.
You don't have to.
You can borrow it. I'll get you a new one. This is All That Heaven Allows. This is the Douglas Sirk, 1955. Really stunningly pretty. Like all of Douglas Sirk's movies, they're melodramas, and the weather and everything, the color is all sort of sympathetic with the emotion of the characters and everything. Yeah,
no debating whether that's a fall movie or not. Look at that cover.
Absolutely not. And it's and there's some winter in it too, but that's okay. It gets cold in the autumn. There's some snow, whatever. But it's basically a suburban woman, Jane Wyman, who she's a widow, and she takes to her gardener, who is
saucy.
Yeah, who's Rock Hudson, which of course you would. Come on. He's Rock Hudson. So he's of course not the same sort of class level. So there's a whole class thing happening here. Like this is the 50s, and like certain level of society that she's at, and he does not meet with the approval of the other people in the town.
Yeah.
Which she's a prominent member of. So it's all about like, do you meet the demands and the expectations of other people, or do you follow your own heart, essentially? So,
age-old tale.
It is. Tale as old as time. It's so beautiful, and the color doesn't always make sense. That it's like it's inside the house. There'll be like blues and reds and greens and all these things.
Super vibrant.
It is extremely vibrant. And watch them the best quality you can. Like the Blu-ray is beautiful. They should make a 4K of this. There might be one for all I know.
I always get this movie confused with Leave Her to Heaven.
Oh, okay.
Which is, I don't think,
different.
A fall movie.
That's different.
Very dark.
It could be. I mean, that's another really pretty one. Like it's Lake Tahoe, and that actually could work on this list too. His other movies would also sort of fit the bill here. Written on the Wind, in particular.
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
It even starts with like swirling leaves and stuff, and like
people mentioned Sirk for. I put out a poll like, hey, let me know your favorite fall movies so we can kind of, in case I forgot any, and a lot of people were mentioning his stuff. So. I am quite remiss that I have not seen those.
So one more, and this I almost use this instead, but it takes off of All That Heaven Allows so closely that I just feel like you just go with the original, But it's the 2002 film Far From Heaven, which
pseudo remake.
It's like a pastiche of this it's
inspired
very
by
straight. I mean, it's set in the 50s and it has the same style, even the titles, the music. Cinematography is really lush and gorgeous. It's the same thing.
Man, I'm gonna have to keep all of these.
But it's updated.
I want to check all these out.
And actually, the plot is very similar. Like it's the gardener and all this. She's not a widow though. She's married to Dennis Quaid.
Even saucier.
But Dennis Quaid, as it turns out, has been having flings with men.
Oh.
So it kind of updates it, to like the different modern thing. And the gardener is African American.
Oh man, they're hitting all the boxes.
So and it's the 50s still, but it's like really, it stretches the idea of All Heaven Allows sort of to its limits.
Because they wouldn't have been able to do that back then.
Exactly. So it's really great too. Like this, even 20 years on, I need a Blu-ray of this. I need a 4K of this one to go with it.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to watch that with Grace.
But definitely watch the original. I mean, either one's great, but like if you had to pick one, start with the original and work your way for it. But
good stuff. All right, my next one. Now, this is one you might not immediately go to, but it is a high school movie. And there are a couple key scenes that are very, very fall. It is Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, fun.
Even look at that poster. There's even a fall poster.
Insert poster here.
And that is the scene that I'm talking about. Into the Spider-Verse is one of my favorite animated movies. Yeah. Still to this day. This is the second one.
Who knew that was going to be so good,
Lord and Miller, man, they can make a movie.
Yeah.
Still, this one, the second one's great. I
haven't seen it yet.
Love this. Oh wow.
I was in Europe. What are you gonna do?
It's wonderful. It's really good, but I still think this one is better, and I like this one a lot. There is that beautiful looking scene where they break into the lab, and there's like all the fall, bright, vibrant colors. It looks great in this animation. You've got fall everywhere. You also have snow there because it's New York. So that's like a scene where you said where there's snow, but also the leaves are still on the trees. So it's early fall. School just started. There's another scene later where they go to Aunt May's house and they're fighting in kind of the suburbs, and there's like fall leaves all around.
It's kind of like I also call it like expressionistic or something. It's doing something extra natural or whatever to make it feel like fall or whatever it's doing. Like so, the animation's incredible, and
this is and the story
really inventive,
great
playful,
to go with it. So. This film is way better than it had any right to be. This is another one where I have a book to go with it, another visual aid.
See, you like books.
Only about movies. But look at that. There's the scene I was talking about where they look at that fall. We've got some storyboards here. Obviously that's not the final imagery, but you can get a sense of it and call it back to your memory. And there's another one where they're in Aunt May's suburban neighborhood. Really, really cool. I don't need to talk about the movie. I think I've talked about this movie before. I did a ranking of the Spider-Man films, and it's my favorite one. I think it's incredible. And it definitely fits into the fall category. It's a lighter fall. It's just mainly those key scenes. Well,
it's like Rushmore too. Like we both had a high school movie on there. It just feels right to have a school back to school thing.
Exactly.
I kind of feel bad. I don't have any like football movies on my list, but that kind of is another big fall thing.
Yeah.
I looked into it and I was like, Rudy could work.
Yeah, I watched The Freshman recently.
Yeah, I did. I popped that one in just to see. It just doesn't have a fall vibe.
No, it's very great. I loved it. It's very funny, but I don't think it doesn't really give me. It's the black and white. Also, it's mostly indoors.
Yeah.
But I don't think I need to talk too much about this one. Everyone's heard of this one. It's very popular, but it wasn't when it came out. It didn't make a lot of money. It was kind of a surprise hit. But then won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature.
Right.
And the second one broke the box office. So everyone knows this movie, but maybe you don't remember that it's as much of a fall movie as it is. So maybe go back to that one.
I need to watch it because Eli's never seen it. And we need to watch the sequel. Actually, that's why I didn't go to the theater yet because
you go with him.
I wanted to watch the first one again. Yeah.
Well, I recommend it. It's one of my favorite. A lot of superhero movies. A lot of them don't hold up, but I think this is top tier. Oh, real quick. I want to mention this because this one was on my list almost till the end, but I dropped it off because I didn't want to have two superhero movies kind of in the same vein. So I dropped this one off. It's also not the most fall film, but there's a very, very fall scene. Hellboy 2, The Golden Army.
Is that the Del Toro?
Del Toro. It kills me that Del Toro didn't make my final list. But he doesn't make a lot of fall movies. But there's one scene in particular in this film.
His films are all kind of...
They feel like fall, but the color palette is
like
not
Crimson
really...
Peak or something like that?
Yeah. I thought about that one too, but that wouldn't make my top 10. This is one of my favorite films by him. I think this is the best like mainstream film he did. Like, I'm not a big fan of like most of his like Pacific Rim or like.
You don't like Pacific Rim?
It's fine. It's not great. It's not great. This one is wonderful. Have you ever seen this?
A long time ago in the theater.
So there's a scene where Prince Nuada goes to his father's like throne room to like challenge him or take the throne, whatever he's doing. There is leaves everywhere, and there is just constantly leaves falling the entire scene through the use of digital effects. I don't think someone's pulling on a branch in that scene, but beautiful scene. I love that. It's oranges, and the whole film kind of fits into that October vibe. There's like monsters, and there's like the troll market scene. So I think it could have fit. Like I said, I just didn't want to have two superhero films on the list, so I did drop it off. But definitely go back and watch Hellboy 2 if you haven't. I think it holds up surprisingly well. Very fun. You got the creepy, sad elements to it, but surprisingly funny and entertaining film. Definitely one of the more interesting superhero things. It goes more into the fantasy department with Del Toro's interests.
It has a real artist like in the directing chair. So like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, looks gorgeous. So check out those two.
Okay, so we're in top 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, fun. I feel good about my top 3. We mentioned this one earlier.
So happy about. I didn't know that you love this much.
I do love it. I am only picking a third of this movie. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Which was a package film, basically. Well,
so you have a short on your list too. I had the Red Balloon, and you have the Blustery Day.
Yeah, exactly. This is super short. Well, it's like 25 minutes maybe of the movie. It starts at about the 25, 28 minute mark if you're watching this. Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day was a short that was in the theater in 1968, and they used to play shorts ahead of their features, and it was with the feature, I had to look this up. The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit was the feature.
Oh.
I don't know.
Did not stand the test of time.
No, it didn't. This was the second Winnie the Pooh short they did, which is why it's the second episode in the film. But it's it actually won the Oscar for those. It's the only one that won an Oscar, which is cool. So anyway,
it's incredible what they do with the animation in that. With
it is
like
incredible.
The tree falling and all this stuff. It's incredible.
And the flood and all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's like
water.
It's top shelf Winnie the Pooh. I think this is the best. It doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah. I mean, I'll always have a soft spot for the honeybees in the tree.
That's good.
And then,
get stuck in the hole and everything.
The third one might come back for the winter list because that's
the third
winter
one. I mean, they're all great, you know. But.
So good. I'm so excited. I didn't know you love Winnie the Pooh this much. I always think I'm a weirdo because it's like one of my favorite Disney films.
Blustery Day has the Heffalumps and Woozles dream sequence. It has this where Tigger shows up.
Introduces Tigger for the first time.
It's got the leaves and the flood and the rain came down thing and all that stuff. Yes. The songs are great.
They come back. So you got those two guys.
And then Piglet
do all the music.
Like Owl loses his house, so Piglet like gives.
Oh, heartbreaking. I was always so mad. I was like, Piglet, no. But then he goes and lives with Pooh, so it's fine.
And Sherman Brothers songs.
Sherman Brothers. That's what I was trying to think of. They get a cameo.
Tigers wonderful things. Their tops of rubber.
They get a cameo in this at the end credits.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Good for them.
They're at the beach. Or one of them. I think the other one had passed away. But look at us. Look at us.
So lots of Pooh. Lots of Pooh Bear stuff. It's so good. I had several other potential Disney picks for this. A lot of animation. In particular, we talked about Ichabod and Mr. Toad last time.
Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
But I kind of like, it's good, but it's a good like spooky Halloween one, and it's paired another package film. It's paired with The Wind in the Willows, Legend of Sleepy Hollow. There's actually a lot of Sleepy Hollow stuff I could have picked too. Like Sleepy Hollow.
Tim Burton.
That was an option. Fox and the Hound is another good fall.
Oh, that does feel kind of fallish.
Yeah, it definitely gets in the fall.
I think that's another underrated one. I think that's pretty good.
I popped in Bambi, or I turned it on Disney Plus because Bambi is like all seasons, and fall is in there, but it's like a
least represented of all the seasons.
It's almost like just a transition to winter. Scary Forest. There's a lot of forest stuff on our lists, I think, or especially on my long list.
Yeah, it's a good visual. It's a good visual, especially Ichabod and Mr. Toad. But yeah, we watched that one every Halloween, so that was more in the October list for me. If we do that video,
Pocahontas. I don't know how you feel about Pocahontas. I really haven't seen that since the 90s, so I don't know.
I've only seen it once. I didn't love it, but yeah, Colors of the Wind is a big fall.
There's some colors in that. Non-Disney, there's Secret of Nim, which I think, have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I got it back there.
Which is dark, but it feels like fall. Wolfwalkers, I think, is great.
Really good. Anything from that studio.
It's The Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown is like one of those. But again, for shorts, I think this takes the cake. Anyway, Winnie the Pooh.
That's all you need.
And the Blustery Day.
Blustery Day. Just watch the whole thing. Now, I am almost certain this is where we're going to have crossover, but I had to put it on the list. It's Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh.
Did this make the list? Oh, we're going to have no crossover. This is great. So I pulled this out of the Blu-ray box set because I like it better. I've got the 4K box set back there, but this box set is just gorgeous. Specifically going with Fellowship, not just because it is my favorite of the trilogy, but it is, I believe, the most fall. Is it really a hot take?
No, I'm probably not.
I think it is. I think Two Towers is most people's. Fellowship's my favorite, and it is, I would say, the most autumnal. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm,
you got the road where they're hiding from the ringwraiths, and that's actually in the trailer. It's like the opening shot of the trailer is like leaves blowing around as the ringwraith comes down the. Great.
We have Rivendell.
Rivendell's got some fall imagery. Also, this ends on the big battle with Boromir, and they're just like falling through leaves and like running through that forest. So it covers a lot of ground. They go up in the mountains, and there's some snow for a little bit, but
there's always snow in the mountains.
Majority of this looks very fall, and it actually takes place in September. I think that's when the ball gets rolling. Is when they leave Hobbiton is in September. So
I think it works too because like in terms of thematically fall because it starts in the Shire and it's beautiful and it's September, so it's late summer and like, you know, everything's green and picturesque and everything, and the characters are happy and warm and there's no problems. And then stuff happens and and it gets colder, and you know, the sympathetic weather idea.
Yeah, that is the most interesting thing about doing these videos with you, I think, is figuring out the themes that seem to keep coming up in these particular season of films. Like for summer films, we figured out that it's mostly like coming of age, road trip kind of movies. Yeah, like self-discovery. And for this, it's a lot of dealing with loss and grief and like things changing, and which is
just wait. No, it's actually not.
But yeah, Lord of the Rings. This is another one that I don't feel like I need to say anything about. Everybody's seen Lord of the Rings. If you haven't seen it by this point, you don't want to see it. You're just not into it.
You should watch it again.
Yeah, you should. We need to watch it again. I still haven't seen the 4K edition that I bought. It's been sitting there forever.
Are you an extended or a theatrical?
I am 100% extended. But I've only seen the theatrical once in the theater. Every other time I've watched it. I know you're a big
well, on this one in particular, I watched the movie in the theater so many times that it's just in my head. And I know that they recut. They didn't just add scenes back in. They actually recut a lot of the film when they did the extended. So even some of the same dialogue there's different takes of it and stuff. It's just kind of weird to me. Although it's hard to watch the theatrical and know that there's extra material out there. Yeah, I'm not seeing.
Well, and if I watched
because it's canon,
theatrical at this point, I would have that jarring experience. Probably so. Where I'd be like, "Oh, this is different." Yeah. But kind of going back to Monster Calls, I think Frodo goes on all the hobbits go on a very similar journey as that kid, where they're learning that the world is more gray, more complicated, more scary than their nice little hobbits. And
you get disillusioned.
Yes, shattering disillusionment is what fall is about. Yes. But
yikes.
Lord of the Rings, I mean, if I could make that a yearly tradition in fall, I definitely would. But it is quite a commitment. And trying to line up.
I gotta watch that again. We should watch that downstairs with your in a 4K.
Well, beautiful. If we don't, well, we won't have time tonight because it's already getting late because we've been recording for a long time. But yes, we should do that.
We've been recording for 3 hours now. So. So I felt like I needed a New York in the fall movie. So my number 2 is my pick of New York in fall. Now, I know there are a lot of options for this. There's, in particular, When Harry Met Sally, I think looks very fall.
I watched that this week. It goes through a lot of seasons.
It does go through a lot of seasons.
But the fall ones are pretty
Christmas,
prominent.
I think. New Year, like it ends on New Year's. It's a big moment. And like You've Got Mail is a very fall one, too, I think. But it's fine. Autumn in New York, I watched... So you won't have to, and it was terrible.
Oh man!
And
wow! I thought you were just like throwing out. You're like hedging your bets here, like throwing out a bunch just in case people get mad at you.
Pick one you guys like.
Which one did you pick though?
So I picked Hannah and Her Sisters. You know this movie?
No.
So it's a Woody Allen movie from the 80s.
Oh, you're a huge Woody Allen fan, so that checks out.
Yes. So I'll just let that simmer. I mean, it's great. You know, anyone who is a fan of Woody Allen probably has had some soul searching the last few years, but the movies are great. So what do you
complicated? It's complicated.
Hannah and Her Sisters.
I'm getting fall vibes just from the fashion.
Because they're all bundled up, and
I got the orange scarf.
In particular, this one it's fall because it takes place on Thanksgivings. So it's actually like 2 full years. It starts on one Thanksgiving.
Oh.
There's a Thanksgiving in the middle, and then it ends at Thanksgiving. So it's it's in one of those family getting together things.
I was gonna say Thanksgiving is kind of its own animal, because one that a lot of people brought up was the New World, which is a film I haven't seen yet, but I did just buy in the last Criterion sale.
That's good. And
I'm gonna watch that on this Thanksgiving. So
Terrence Malick.
That's a good. Might have made my list had I seen it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Terrence Malick is like The New World's like a really good intro Terrence Malick film because it has a familiar story.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go too far off in the deep end, but it does have his style very much. And like,
interesting.
Yeah, I think the music's great, the cinematography's great, and
yeah, I'm excited to check that one out. Yeah. There's a lot of different cuts of it. I gotta figure out which cut to watch.
So this one, Mia Farrow plays Hannah, and Woody Allen's in it, and he plays her ex-husband. So there's a whole thing. You could read a lot into this movie, but she's currently with Michael Caine, who is fantastic. He won an Oscar for this. He won a bunch of Oscars. Barbara Hershey plays one of the sisters, and she is with Max von Sydow. Diane Wiest plays the third sister. She is single. She dates the Woody Allen character at one point, and then it's kind of weird because they were like, this is whole sisters thing, and there's the whole, Barbara Hershey has a fling with Michael Caine.
Wow.
Or he pursues her.
You got a very soap opera.
There's a lot of
films.
A lot of this happening and back and forth.
Does anybody have a twin?
The kids are I guess they're twin kids.
Oh wow.
No, they're not.
No evil
adult,
twins.
No evil twins.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Good.
But it's just a really engrossing story. All these characters are so rich, and everything kind of clicks. So it's good. It's good. It's a really good movie. It's fun to watch at Thanksgiving.
Number 2.
Yeah, and it's not too much Woody Allen. Like, he's in it, but he's not in it too much.
This next one is not as beloved as Lord of the Rings. I think this one's kind of hated by a lot of people. I think it's underappreciated.
This is fun.
I'm standing up for this film.
Do I hate it? Have we talked about it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We're going to the musical. We haven't had any musicals yet. My number 2 is Into the Woods.
Interesting.
Into the Woods.
Another woods movie.
All about the woods.
A lot of forests.
Another movie. Now this is the most fall movie. Like literally every scene, there's just leaves constantly falling. I just rewatched it recently with the kids. I watched the first half with the kids. I think it's a good movie to show your kids and turn off at the happy ending because the second half gets really Sondheim dark and
There's
depressing.
a kids version of the musical. I think actually ends there.
Okay,
like the junior.
I think it's perfect.
Junior.
I think it's a great show for younger kids, and then when they grow up, they'll see like the second. Oh, this whole second half of this movie. Shattering disillusionment, right? Fairy tales. Starting out safe, and then
life is more complicated than you think.
Exactly. There's this needs a reevaluation. I think people need to go back and watch that. All of the stuff about like raising your children and allegory with Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf and him turning him into like a predator and like her kind of awakening that she has in this film. Same thing with Jack with the female giantess and all of the stuff. The morals about parenting and how everything's more difficult. Another father-son film with good performance by James Corden, which I don't think I've ever seen before.
The witch and there's all these different relationships that it's so cool. Like you said, like it wraps itself up in a nice little bow. Like a regular movie or a regular musical would just end right there and you're good. And that's what you get. But then he's like, no, you don't understand.
No,
here's
life sucks.
Things get so complicated and dark and just and rich. It's just a richer story and just a lot of meat to chew on. It's just so compelling and
thank you.
And the musical, the songwriting.
I'm not crazy.
Obviously brilliant. I mean,
the songwriting is great. I know
that's actually one of my favorite musicals. Not the movie, but in general, just the musical.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love Sondheim. Like I said, it's very fall. There's just leaves everywhere, and you're in the woods like the entire time. But I will say,
as you might assume,
like Christopher Robin, this one. I don't think Disney would make it the same way now. Like it is so they don't reference any of their versions of these. They don't like try to make it the Disney version. I know this got a lot of heat for being that, but it's not. Like these are clearly the Grimm's fairy tale versions of these stories. Like the prince gets thrown off his horse and gets his eyes stabbed out by thorns and he's blind. Like the Cinderella sisters cut parts of their foot off to fit into the slipper and then they get their eyes eaten out by crows.
Real fairy tales.
Yeah, like they're the actual Grimm's fairy tales version. They don't do any references like visually to their stuff. Like I love that Disney actually wasn't as full of themselves back then, and they actually did this. I know some people think it's a little too sanitized and family friendly, but I really, really love this movie, and it hits me on an emotional place every time I watch it. And I went back to it this week, and I actually watched this with my kids. I told you I watched it halfway, and then I finished it. And then I watched M right after this. Surprisingly, a good double feature. Like both of them are about.
That one, don't let your kids watch that.
No, don't. That's super dark. But they're both about like our responsibility as adults to be vigilant and like morally discerning when it comes to like protecting children from specifically predators. Like
as a society,
all that film's about. Yes.
Yeah.
Very weird double feature. I'm sure I'm the only person who's ever done that, but I had to do it because I was doing that video with Connor. We were reviewing M. And I had to watch this for my fall countdown. So yeah, I like this movie more than anyone else. I know I'm a crazy person, but very, very fall. That's Into the Woods.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. You should see the stage. I mean, it's the same. We're at number 1.
We're at our number 1.
Okay, so I actually wasn't sure what to pick for number 1. Ordering these was terrible.
Yeah, like I said, don't pay attention too much to the order. These are just 10 movies I love that remind me of fall.
I only have this one at the top because it's one I absolutely have to watch every fall. I have to watch this on Halloween. And I'm not a big horror movie guy.
Yeah, same.
So this is not one of those, but it takes off on it.
But it feels like Halloween, but it's not.
Young Frankenstein.
Oh, Young Frankenstein.
Have you seen Young Frankenstein?
They play that at the Strand every year. They're playing it this year. You should go see it.
Yeah, it's a parody. It's a satire of Frankenstein, essentially. And it's Gene Wilder, who's, I think, is the grandson of Dr. Victor
Wilder
Frankenstein.
Always wonderful. I wanted to find some way that I could get Willy Wonka into this list, but I don't. I ultimately didn't. It's all inside of a building, so it doesn't feel fall, but Gene Wilder is wonderful.
Cloris Leachman and Terry Garr, all these great actors. And they're
very what a curveball for your number one after you have a fully depressing list and then you have a parody film at your number one.
Well, because it's like the perfect thing to watch on Halloween as a antidote to all the dark stuff, you know? Like it's true. It's the fun way. I have another film that we watch every year for Halloween that I'll mention in a minute. Okay.
It is not this.
I don't think there's not a whole lot to say about this. I could probably quote this thing from start to finish.
Yeah, I think people are familiar with it.
There's so many just good bits in it.
It's basically just a series of sketches that they string together with a thin plot.
And it takes Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein and kind of meshes them and then parodies the whole thing. So, but it's done in the style. It's in black. It's the only black and white film I have on my list, actually.
Yeah.
Does this take place in the fall?
Who knows? Sure. Well, there's a lot of spooky films that just fit into that October vibe, even though if they don't take place. But
I mean, I thought about actually putting Bride of Frankenstein on here because that's a good one. Frankenstein's good.
I wish, my favorite of the original Universal Monster movies is Invisible Man, and I wanted to get that on here so bad, but it takes place in the snow. Like all the outside scenes are snow. I was like, man.
I was actually making a list of winter movies and spring stuff that would come up.
I had a film on my list up until a couple days. Like when I rewatched it, I realized that it's kind of more winter than fall. There are leaves on the ground and stuff, but all the leaves off the trees have already fallen because it's just a place where there's no snow. So it's all about being cold and wintry. So that's more wintry. If we do a winter video, that'll come up later. So I dropped that off the list and was able to get another thing on here. But
that's my number one. Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein. Wow. All right, my number one. I also think is a must watch. Also a very forgotten film. Maybe the film that got me into French cinema. It's not a French film. It's a very much American film, but I would say the feel of it is very French. And a young high school DJ that fell in love with this film, I think it opened a door to why I love French films so much these days.
Interesting. It's not a French film.
Very formative movie for me. I don't think this made much of an impact. I don't think a lot of people like this movie. It's Dan in Real Life.
Oh.
Have you seen this?
No.
Dan in Real Life stars Juliette Binoche. Absolutely.
Okay.
Juliette Binoche is in this. This is another, like you mentioned, family reunion film. Dan, played by the great Steve Carell, one of my favorite actors. He needs to do more stuff like this. I don't love his comedy stuff outside of The Office. I'm not a big Dinner for Schmucks fan, or I don't like the Anchorman movies. But he's kind of steered into this Oscar movie realm of his career now, and I think he needs to go back to this. He plays
Catcher and stuff like that.
Yeah, he plays a dad in this who has lost his wife. He's raising 3 daughters, and he's just down, man. He's down on his luck. He is struggling. I mean, raising 3 daughters is hard enough with the wife, but by yourself. It's a family reunion film. He goes back to this cabin out in the woods, and it's 100% fall. Look at that poster. 100% fall. It's very early 2000s poster, but very fall. On the way to the family reunion, he meets Juliette Binoche at a bookstore. Hits it off. Has not started dating at all since his wife is gone, but of course, Juliette Binoche. I mean, you gotta try, shoot your shot, and he does, and he hit it off so well, and it's like, oh my gosh, and he's finally out there, and he's putting himself out there. So he gets their number, they leave. He goes to the family reunion. His brother shows up at the family reunion. He's meeting his brother's girlfriend for the first time. It's Juliette Binoche. So this exactly this whole family reunion, he's trying to stay away from her. He obviously doesn't want to do that to his brother, but he's keeps finding himself drawn to her, and they have such good chemistry. And the relationship with her brother is not, that solid. It's pretty new, so it's like this moral dilemma that he's in. Great cast all around. There's a bunch of people. Yeah, look at that cast. Great cast.
John Mahoney.
There is a bunch of people in this movie, and it's the most fun family. My family reunions are never like this. They're doing all these activities together, and having they're doing all the charades and the playing football outside, and they do a talent show, and it's such a fun, feel good movie. Me and Grace just watched it again. a couple weeks ago, and it always just, I don't know.
I gotta see it. You've talked about this before.
Yes,
so
this is one of my favorites. I feel like I have to champion this film because nobody ever talks about it. But I like it a lot. It's very fall. I think it's the most fall movie on my list. Like I said, they're all wearing sweatshirts. They're playing football outside in the fall weather. I think they're up in like maybe Vermont or something.
Oh, wow.
Maine. I don't know, somewhere up in New England, in this little tiny small town, and they're all just basically at the cabin the whole time. I like it a lot.
It's great.
It is a film that is completely soundtrack and scored by one artist who is a French artist.
Who is it?
Sondre Lerche? Sondre Lerche?
Lerche?
Yes.
Lerche?
Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Sondre
Well, he
Lerche?
did some other soundtrack.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was.
It's an amazing soundtrack. I love
My computer's
the entire soundtrack, and I love the score. And it goes through the entire film, and I think that's really cool.
That's
I
cool.
love when a director lets an artist completely score the entire film. I might like that more than when you get like a soundtrack that's like a mixed bag of a bunch of people. I
Like
guess
About a Boy.
either one can work, but
About a Boy kind of does that. I don't remember what the name of the band is.
Okay.
But they do a bunch of original songs throughout the movie, and then it also is scored with the same kind of music.
Yeah.
And the movie,
there's another list video we could do.
The Eight Mountains, that's on Criterion. It's like a Belgian film.
Yeah.
It's really good, and it also has songs. I thought it was like different artists, but I looked it up, and it's actually like one person doing all the music. And
Okay.
so I like that thing too. It's good.
Yeah, and
When it's not just score, but it's actually like vocal, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he actually does both in this. There's instrumental stuff and there's songs that play throughout. You've got Julia Binoche, who is French. You've got the artist doing all the music that is very French music, and then I think just the pacing and the vibe of it is also very French because it's just kind of laid back. They're just kind of having conversations and stuff. So I think
So
it's
they
a
got
good
you in
gateway. I think it might have been my gateway. If I try to like backtrack, I don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
I think it could have been my gateway drug to Rohmer
Julia
and
Binoche
Demi
is
and all
so
these.
good.
She's good in everything. And she was magnetic to me when I first saw this. I didn't even know who she was. I was like, "Oh, she's kind of got an accent." I didn't know she was a huge French star at the time.
Did you
I don't know
think
why
about-
she did this.
Did you? Yeah. I mean, she was in English language stuff before. She was, in, Unrebelized the Being, and she was in English Patient. She won an Oscar for that, so she kind of became more of a name, I think, after that. And then she's fantastic.
I don't know how this director assembled this cast. I don't know how this came together, but I'm very glad it did because it's one of those movies that's just like perfect fit for me. All right, let's go into some more honorable mentions.
I have so many.
Okay, just briefly rattle them off. We don't want to make this video too long. I'll
okay.
grab mine.
I have a huge list. Okay, well, I will say I was trying to fit a music movie on here. I remember last time I had Woodstock and Summer of Soul on my summer list. I watched Once, the Irish film.
Is that a fall movie? Yes. Okay, so
I can't tell.
I
couldn't
want.
tell.
Okay, so I'm glad
It may just be Ireland.
It wasn't that fall-y because I wanted to put that on my list. I couldn't find a way to watch it. I don't own that one.
Oh, I have that if you want to.
I love that movie. It's such a good movie.
The Last Waltz, the documentary I've heard is actually I haven't seen it, so I don't know. It's heard it's actually a Thanksgiving concert, so but that doesn't really feel like fall. It just happens to be a Thanksgiving. So Inside Llewyn Davis feels a lot like fall to me, but I think it might just be a winter film. I don't know. It's just cold in New York, so
yeah.
And then like a road trip. I think there's snow. So I'll count it for the winter films. Harold and Maude feels very fall to me, and it's kind of it's very dark humor. And
we started watching that for this video, and we didn't get a chance to finish it.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. I thought about because it's kind of like
watch it every year.
It's a little October-y. Almost Famous. I watched again because why not? Have you seen that?
I haven't. Grace has got it back there on the shelf though. She likes that movie a lot.
It's not fall. I said not fall, but sure feels like it. I have more. Do you want to interject?
Sure, I'll throw some out here. Big Chill is one that I watched recently, which is such a fun watch. Such a laid back, just people literally go to a house in the fall and just hang out with old friends that you haven't hung out with in a long time.
Like in South Carolina or somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That's the vibe.
Very, it's another reunion film,
moss.
except it's friends instead of family, but
oh yeah,
it used to be family at one time. Next one we actually watched together last time you were here. This is The Trouble with Harry, which is the most beautiful fall looking film ever. It takes place up in New England somewhere, I think Vermont. And it is like all outside in the mountains and the woods. Gorgeous scenery. Everything's yellow and red, but the story didn't work with us.
The story's not great.
It's kind of bland, kind of just middle of the road. It's like a comedy by Hitchcock. There's no suspense in it at all. But it looks beautiful, so I highly recommend watching it at least once. One that we watch every year, my wife and I, is Arsenic and Old Lace, which is
I haven't seen it.
More of a Halloween film. Most of it takes place indoors. It takes place on Halloween night. Black and white, just didn't fit the fall vibe check as much as other things. So I had to bump it off the list, but it kills me because it's one of my favorite movies.
I almost put this next one on my list.
This would have been like number 11 or 12 for me.
And I'm kind of wearing the sweater, I guess.
You look
in homage.
You look like Chris Evans straight out of this film. There he is.
With his cable net.
Knives Out is an incredible movie. Another one that's way better than it has any right to be.
Fall too.
So fall. I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of outside imagery. Anytime you're outside the house, there's just crunchy leaves under people's feet the whole time. Almost made the list. Just got knocked off.
There's a lot of like haunted house type of, not haunted house, but like stately manor house where dark things happen. Genre.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could throw Clue on this list. We just watched Clue the other day.
Yeah, totally.
It's a really fun film to watch every year for around Halloween time.
Anyway, I had lots of other options.
Well, you narrowed it down. You did really well. We did it. We put together some lists, very different lists.
I'm surprised we had no crossover.
No crossover.
We almost had a Winnie the Pooh. We had crossover characters.
We had a little. I'm surprised you didn't put Fellowship on there because you're the one who brought that one up to me as a fall film. I wouldn't have thought about it if it weren't for you.
It wasn't on my list at all. I don't know none of that stuff. Oh, whatever.
Well, I'm glad we got 20 completely separate films out there and listed a ton more. So go watch some fall movies, guys. I've been having a blast watching fall movies with my wife and my kids this last 3 or 4 weeks getting ready for this video.
Me too, but I feel like I've been cramming so much that I wasn't really appreciating them like I should be. So now I'm going to get my pumpkin spice lattes. I'm going to put on my sweater and I'm going to just enjoy it a little bit. And hopefully it gets a little cooler. I think in October it starts to cool off in Atlanta. So.
And now we're getting into spooky season. So now we got to start pivoting into those kind of films.
Scary
maybe.
Stuff. Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, thanks for coming back. Always a pleasure. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments what your favorite fall movies are and what you think of our very different lists. Talk to you guys down in the comments below. And as always, keep collecting, and I will see you back again with more videos about physical media real soon.